Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more interesting stories like these. Now, let's get into today's story video. My 20 female BF, 20 male, slept with someone else and told me he thought I was okay with it. So a little context is in need here. I met my boyfriend while we were both students at the same high school in a different nation than the one we now reside in. We've been dating for approximately 9 months, and the past 2 have been long distance. We reside on separate continents and won't see each other until school resumes, when we'll be attending different universities, since we both graduated from our previous school. I am a fairly open person when it comes to relationships, and I told him early on that if we were apart for that long, I wouldn't mind if he wanted an open relationship in the sense that he could sleep with other people, as long as we talked about it before anything happened and came to an agreement so we were both comfortable. He said unequivocally that he does not want that he does not want to sleep with anybody other than me, and that he is comfortable spending months without seeing anyone in that manner. I told him it was okay, and that I didn't need to sleep with anybody else, and we decided to remain monogamous. We spoke about it a couple more times, particularly when I knew he was going to a party or something similar. Basically, our agreement was that we would communicate to each other before anything happened, so that we could ensure that we were both comfortable. We didn't want to assume anything or put you under any pressure to declare you're good with the other person sleeping with anybody. We simply wanted to have an open dialogue about it since long-distance relationships can be challenging. He had a pool party with some of his friends last week, and I didn't bring up the subject of sleeping with others, since he's been quite clear in the past that it's not something he'd want to do. He dislikes casual, and he considers to be a highly intimate act that should only be performed with someone you genuinely love. Even though I have a much more casual connection with, I appreciate that. So the day after the party, he informed me he had slept with someone, apologized for not telling me sooner, and thought I wouldn't mind. I was irritated since our arrangement was always that we would talk to each other first and come to an understanding so that it didn't seem like cheating, because it seemed like cheating to me. When I told him I was unhappy, since he had never informed me this was something he wanted to do, he became irritated and began telling me how I assumed I'd have no problem with it because of what I'd said in the past. When I attempted to explain that I was more unhappy since he didn't speak to me beforehand, he said I was exaggerating. I left it alone at that point since I wasn't sure whether I was doing anything wrong. Later that day, we spoke again, and he brought it up as if nothing had happened, laughing about it. I was still furious, and he became irritated with me for being so hypocritical. When I questioned him how I could be hypocritical since I hadn't slept with anybody all summer, he mentioned something that occurred before we began dating. I met another man while out with my buddies in November of last year, when we began hanging out more just the 2 of us. I went home with him and slept with him, and I didn't think it was inherently improper, since I wasn't in any kind of relationship. However, since I was out with my friends, and they were all aware of what had occurred, one of whom was one of his closest friends, I chose to inform him before anybody else brought it up. They didn't know we were hanging out at the time. He was upset by it, which I understood since he informed me that is highly personal to him. We ended up agreeing to be exclusive after that chat, but he also agreed that it wasn't cheating since we hadn't been exclusive or formal at all until that point. But, going back to this week, he brought it up again and informed me that I cheated on him at the start of our relationship. As a result, I had no cause to be furious right now. And because I had previously said that I would be okay with an open relationship, he did nothing wrong and I was overreacting. He said that the only time he messed up was when he chose not to notify me before anything occurred, which I agree with, but he does not believe it was bad enough for me to be unhappy. So, am I doing anything incorrect here? Is this scenario acceptable to me? There will be no response from Op in this post. Story 2. My 29 male, wife, 27 female, has been working from home the past few months and has started having her high school ex over a lot. I told her this is not acceptable. Am I the wrong for this? Hello, everyone. I understand that the title may seem perplexing without the context that I'm going to provide. So, ever since COVID began, my wife has worked from home. My employer would never allow us to do so, so I had to drive to work every day. She has a pal with whom she socializes on occasion. He's previously been asked to hang out with both of us. He's polite, enjoyable to be around, and quite cool. This has not been an issue for me. My wife informed me early on that she dated him in high school. They dated throughout their freshman and sophomore years, according to her. They'd never had but did have fun. During their senior year, they began to reconnect as friends. He had a girlfriend at the time, and she was seeing another person as well. She maintains that when they split up, there was no longer anything romantic between them. My wife said that when COVID began, she would be able to work from home. I was relieved and delighted for her since I knew it would be simpler and even save petrol. She said that her buddy would be able to work from home as well, so they may meet up sometimes to go over their work and assist one another. They both work in a similar field. I arrived home one day and saw he was there. I didn't think much of it, since my wife had informed me about it. They both had computers and seemed to be working very hard. It was like this for a while. After a few weeks, I'd come home and they'd be casually hanging around and having fun. Sometimes they'd be playing a game. Sometimes they'd be drinking. And sometimes they'd be eating. This began to seem strange to me. He appeared to be receiving more attention than I was, and she looked to be having a better time with him than I was. Then one day when I got home, it was the last straw. They were both sitting on the sofa, and her head was on his lap while they watched TV. I waited until he was gone before speaking with her. I was enraged. I shouted at her, telling her that their acts were wrong and that there was no need for her to be sleeping with a buddy like that. I said how I thought she was paying more attention to him than her spouse and that they looked to be having more fun together than we do. Not to mention that they had previously dated and messed about. She became enraged and said that I had no right to tell her that she could no longer be near someone. She was furious that I implied she was cheating on me with him and vowed she was not and would not do so. She said that all they were doing was resting and that it was perfectly okay for her to rest her head on his lap. He hasn't been at home the previous 2 days when I arrived home. She claims she hasn't seen him since our conversation. I apologize for being so enraged. She doesn't appear to have accepted my apologies since she has been quite quiet around me ever since. What can I do to improve things? Is she deceiving you? How do I approach the situation between her and this friend? Update. So, last week, I mentioned on a few pages that my wife was spending time at our home with an old high school ex. Since COVID's inception, he had been visiting her and working from home with her. At first, I didn't think much of it, since they were merely assisting one another with their job. Then they began to hang out and do other things. I'd had enough when I saw her lying down with her head on his lap. I told her he couldn't come over anymore. She was enraged and took offense, but she consented. The majority of the folks here agreed with me that her actions were suspicious. I was informed that he may still come over throughout the day and leave before I arrived. I ended up purchasing a camera that I could set up and conceal while at work. I placed one in the living room and another in the bedroom. Nothing out of the ordinary occurred on the first day they were put up. It occurred on the second day. The ex arrived. They were simply working at first, but then he became somewhat tactile with her. It proceeded to the point that they required going to our bedroom and sleeping together. I was taken aback. I had no idea what to do. As soon as I saw my wife again, I asked her whether she was still seeing him. She flatly rejected it. I informed her that I had cameras put throughout the home. Her expression drastically shifted at that point. She was aware of what I had seen. She burst into tears right away. I told her she had to leave the home. She attempted to apologize and explain herself, but I was having none of it. We've only spoken to each other once since then. I informed her that I couldn't see anything other than a divorce happening. She said that she does not want that and requested if I would attend to couples therapy once before making that final choice. I agreed, if grudgingly. I'm not expecting it to succeed, and I'm mostly doing it to amuse her. As I type this, I'm still searching for and attempting to contact divorce counsel.